Houston, our instruments are showing that we have a incoming message from deep space. Repeat, Houston, we have an incoming message from deep space. Houston, we'll begin playing message now. Houston, we're going to try and translate that up here. Hold for translation. Translation complete. We'll begin playing message now.
Hey, it's me, Melissa.
What do you do when the aliens invade? Take a shot of MK Ultra and watch Melissa Jade. Put on your tinfoil hat and tune right in. We got that crime spree, flat earth theories, government conspiracies, a complex Mandela effects, unidentified objects of mind expanding, fake moon landing, what are dolphins understanding? It's me, Melissa. It's me, Melissa. Aliens on the sun or in Area 51. Time travels, unravels, haunted castles, cops are baffled, potential experimental thoughts that make you transcendental. It's me, Melissa. It's me, Melissa. Crime sprees, flat earth theories, government conspiracies, complex Mandela effects, unidentified objects of mind expanding, fake moon landing, what are dolphins understanding? It's me, Melissa. It's me, Melissa.
Hello, everybody. Happy Members Only Monday. Hello, hello. Thank you, Cutie Pie, for becoming a member again. Hello to anybody watching outside of the chat. Welcome. Hey, Lisa. Hey, Chezzy, Curious Christine, Violet, Alvin, Chloe Jade, Killa Kev, Alexander, Lori, Violet, Allie, Alvin. Oh, wow. After court went where Elijah spent his last day. Oh, no. Oh, God, that must have been so intense. Hey, Amy. Oh, it's okay, Amy, because we're going to be doing another one on Patreon. Of course. Okay, so I fell asleep during the last witness of Leilani today. So I know I'm going to have to watch that again. But I know that you guys will help me as far as the last witness, because she was a very important witness too. But all day rushing around, we have Leilani, we have Boone, we have Delphi, okay? And so I had my Patreon live scheduled. It's the first day that Leilani's trial actually utilizes the court day and goes very long. And so I rushed over there, tried to get it all out within 30 minutes, which is very, very a small amount of time for me and my thoughts. So don't worry about rushing over there and watching, because we're going to be doing another one. So she held her own. The defense attorney is a dick. And we're going to talk about that. But okay, Lori, he's too much of a dick sometimes. I agree, but I do appreciate that he's fighting. Hi, Forgets and Shiggles. Hi, Pam. I know, Allie. Hopefully you could come up and when you're done, and maybe at least fill me in with the last witness. And I was going strong, but I laid down and I was like, all right, I got like a little bit to chill. And I passed out. And I was like, oh, dude, he's the old guy from Up. So we have Lord Farquaad, and then we have the old man from Up. Okay. Okay, but here, before we even get started, let me pull up. We have 2 missing children tonight because they are associated with one another. So we have Sam Smith. Sam has been missing since October 18th, 2024 out of Ratcliffe, Arizona. He is now 14 years old. He is black with black hair, brown eyes. He is 5 foot 9 inches. There's an Amber update. Trixie is believed to be with Sam Smith, and Trixie is our other missing child. A 14-year-old she met online. Trixie had two backpacks, one light blue, and the other is an unknown color, a silver Kia SUV with black wheels with an unknown black male driver, believed to be Sam Smith, purchased gas at Handyway in Clarksville in Logan County during the early evening hours of October 18th. Smith was reported missing from Wadesboro, North Carolina on October 17th. Both teens are considered endangered at this time. Last seen wearing white short shirt with a large brown striped black pants. So if you or anyone you know has information on Sam or Trixie's whereabouts, please contact the Logan County Sheriff's Office at 479-963-3271 or call 911. And then let me just pull up hers. Hi, Deets.
Oh, is this a talking stream? It's not silent over here?
It's not silent.
I see.
And then this is Trixie, guys. So Trixie's 14. She is white, blue hair, green eyes, 5 foot, 100 pounds. Last seen wearing, she has purple glasses. Last seen wearing a white short shirt with a large brown stripe and black pants. She had two backpacks, one light blue and the other's unknown. Trixie had a cat with her that is black with brown spots. So again, you could contact the Logan County Sheriff's Office at 479-963-3271 or call 911. Thank you, Curious Chrissy, and thank you for always looking out for the kiddos. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Deets, I fell asleep for the last witness for most of it.
Oh, she was good. She was really good.
Did Danny have a tap on him?
Yes, he had a wiretap.
I need to know.
They didn't play much from it, and unfortunately, I was coming in and out of cell service when that was going on. But what I did catch was basically just more of Leilani lying, basically what we heard on the previous audio, where she continued on with her Orgel story to Danny, even on the 31st. She was still pushing that to him.
All right, so I have to ask, what do you think, because it's day 5 and 6 recap. Day 5, we started with Diane, the babysitter. But what do you think of this defense attorney? Because I know everybody thinks he's a dick, and he is a dick, but I appreciate that he is fighting. Now, does he have to have as much as an attitude?
He goes hard. He goes hard in the paint, that's for sure.
He goes hard, but listen, we have to put our emotions to the side for a second and try not to be super biased. What is the role of a defense attorney, right? The role of the defense attorney is to fight for their client and to create that reasonable doubt or whatever it is they're going through.
And also to protect our constitutional rights. And, I honestly, this is probably, I like to tease him a lot in my streams, you know that. But how I truly, truly feel is I'm glad he's going as hard as he is, because if she is found guilty, it's going to be a lot harder for her on appeals, because he's doing everything he possibly can and should be doing. And so we don't want any reason for, bogus appeals or something.
No, we don't want bogus appeals. And listen, the jury, it's the way he speaks, and I know everyone doesn't like it, but the way he's like, well, Danny gave inconsistent statements, and it makes the jury's ears perk up. And the same way that I heard him say, well, Leilani was the only one who was caught lying. Oh yeah, we'll get into that. Are you sure about that?
Yeah.
It's gonna stick with the jury, and that is the motive. That is the mission. So of course we want Leilani held accountable, but she deserves a fair fight just like everyone. And he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. So I like him for that reason. He just takes it a little much, a little far.
Today, I would say that so remember, a jury's comprised of me and you, lots of people with different opinions, and we see things in life differently. That's the upside and the downside to having a jury of your peers. So there are going to be people that feel the way I feel and people that feel the way MJ feels possibly on this jury. And I would think that most of the time they probably thought, oh, yeah, he's just doing his job. Maybe he's a little rough around the edges. But today specifically, I got to think there's quite a few on that jury that are going, man, what an a-hole. He was a little extra today.
He was rough. He was a little bit extra. His facial expressions make me laugh because even at the period of time where we had prosecution and defense kind of going back and forth about whether or not to allow the jury to be handed binders, and photos to be shown versus up on the screen. And when Superman, as Dietz refers to him as prosecution, is making his argument, if you watch the defense lawyer, he has the most funniest face expressions because what he's thinking based on his face expression. He's like, like you could see him.
Yeah, he's like he's pre-planning the words in his head.
Yes.
And sometimes, and today especially, he wouldn't even let Superman get like the words out of his mouth before he was objecting. And at one point, he was like, he objected to something, and the guy, Superman's like, how do you know what the question's even gonna be? Like, I haven't even gotten it out.
Well, and he's like, listen, prosecution hasn't brought this in, but I saw one of them wheeling a big old box, so I'm gonna assume that they have something for the jury. So I'm gonna pre-object to this. And then Superman had to get up and be like, we do actually have something for the jury. And you could see him going like, I knew it. So I could just imagine.
I think that what Sassy Pants thought they had for the jury was pertaining to Big Red and Tim. I think that's what he thought they had for the jury because he slightly mentions texts in there. And so I think that's what he thought they were. But then we find out that it's these, horrible, horrible photos. And then he's stuck. So then he's got to fight it. Yes. And then he looks like a complete ass trying to fight it because he's stuck there. He already made a scene about it.
Well, and for anybody who isn't aware, like what was contained within these binders, individual binders for each of the 16 jury members, were more high definition photos of the remains, and it was prior to getting to the lab, and so it's literally what they recovered. And prosecution, their argument is they don't want to put it up on the screen. This is being streamed publicly, on television. They're trying to keep a level of respect, so they wanted to give each jury member their own individual binder, and then when the witness is on the stand, they could kind of just like flip through and look at it themselves. I never could have imagined defense to turn around and be like, no, like we want this on the big screen. But I think, like Dietz said, you had kind of walked in through that door before you knew what it was even about, so he kind of had to stick to his guns. Thanks, Jack, for the gifted membership. And so it was strange. But that's what I was going to say. So one of the biggest takeaways from today is that Red Craig is going to be a witness. So originally we weren't going to hear, and Red Craig is Leilani's drug dealer affair boyfriend. But they got these messages approved last week to be admitted as evidence. These text message exchanges between Leilani and her drug dealer boyfriend.
Now, let me ask you, starting at the beginning, what did you think of the showdown between the defense and the prosecution pertaining to getting these two witnesses in? Now, it was the second chair arguing it. We don't often hear from her. We've heard from her maybe one or two other times. Right. What did you think of that whole back and forth?
I think it was interesting. I think that she made a good point, because he's scared, and I want to know why he's scared.
Something's in there.
There's something is in there. And she's like, listen, like you're acting like we're throwing you a freaking curveball here. No, they may not have been on the witness list, but they're within all of this, like you knew they were a player, you knew what they were about. Like, so It's not like you're completely thrown off, but he wants to talk to Craig. I don't know if it's more Craig or more, what's the other one?
Tim is the other one. Tim's the actual dealer that I think Leilani purchases often from, and Craig is his cousin who also deals. So they're like, they're a whole family enterprise here of dealers. And then, as we learned today, sorry if you get struck for this, the Craig is also a sex liaison, apparently.
What is that? Yes, because she came in and she's like, respectfully, Your Honor, they're asking if they don't have to be televised. Now, we watched that with one witness happen so far, but she was a minor. She was a minor. So the judge asked, well, what's the reasoning? You have to have a good reason. And prosecution's like, well, it's TV, and
they don't want to be on TV.
Right. And so we have Lord Farquaad defense going like, okay, we're all on TV. None of us like it. That's not an excuse, Your Honor. And he's right about that, though. You don't get special treatment, but he's nervous about something. And he is and that's why I think he jumped the gun as far as seeing stuff being wheeled in after lunch. Yep. He wants to talk to Red Craig and Tim, but they don't have to talk to defense.
They don't.
So what is he going after? He's asking, are you planning on calling them this afternoon? They're probably going to be called tomorrow. And we knew that they had these text messages to admit, and we were curious how they were going to get them in now that Danny has been done. And it's through Red Craig and Tim themselves.
I had been guessing, and I know you and I had discussed in privately this whole time, like, okay, which FBI agent are they going to get him in through? Because it is very rare to get witnesses added to the witness list. And so we just assumed that, one of these agents are going to be bringing them in, which would be very hard to go through because you're just, you're going through them. You're going through somebody else's messages.
Right.
So I'm very interested to hear it, directly from the horse's mouth, so to speak. But do you remember back when Superman was trying to get them admitted and he was thumbing through that stack of them? There are thousands of messages.
A lot. And the few that we got a preview of, one of them did contain a reference about Leilani and Danny's relationship. She said something about Danny and them fighting or something, and Craig responding back. So they are talking about her and Danny's relationship. That is a huge
it's gonna be
argument.
A big deal.
Right. It's relevant. And so it seems like they probably did not want to be a witness, and now, prosecution took the weekend and we're like, yo, we need you. They're like, all right, I don't want to be on camera though, and defense is like, no, if you're going to be a freaking witness, you're going to be sitting square in front of the camera. But what the hell is a sex liaison? Because they said, well, and one of them is a sex liaison. And I'm like, a sex liaison? What is that?
I don't know the actual technical definition for it, but I think what she was getting at is it's not a what would it be? It's not a mistress. What is it for a guy? It's her mister. It's, they're basically what she was getting at is one of them is going to be discussing, I'm guessing, some very intimate, possibly graphic sexual details. And that's why they don't want their face on camera. But sorry,
what's
bud.
A liaison? Do you know what a liaison
A
is?
liaison is like a spokesperson.
A sex spokesperson?
I mean, kind of like, so like have you ever gone to an event where you have a liaison that is, like showing you around or handling the affairs for you or telling you what's going to happen? It's kind of like that. Maybe we should look up the definition.
I
sound like an
I
idiot.
wanted to, but I didn't know how to spell liaison, as sad as that is. But now I see it in the chat, so I'm already Googling. So a sexual liaison is a sexual relationship or sexual intercourse. That's it? Wait, that's it?
Just Google liaison. Just see what a liaison, like the definition of liaison is.
Ew. Oh, I hate that. Okay. Liaison. Communication or cooperation which facilitates a close working relationship between people or organizations. Example, the head porter works in close liaison with the reception office.
Yeah, so basically he's going to be facilitating the He's going to be the spokesperson for the affair. I don't know how
That
else to
is
word it.
bizarre. So, a sexual relationship, especially between two people not married to each other. So this is going to get into the dirty, dirty girl aspect
Yes.
of, oh
I
man, this is going to be
exactly.
awesome. Oh my God.
I always called you Johnson because you sounded like her, like, super excited. MJ is pumped for tomorrow.
Yeah,
I remember when they were arguing whether these texts were relevant the first time and the second time, and just being very adamant, of course they're relevant. This is an individual that she was having an affair with, that she went and saw hours before her son was brutally murdered. And I'm sorry if you don't want me to say the words here, I apologize.
no, you're
But
fine.
hours before, Quentin was taken from this earth, I think it is 1,000% relevant,
It
especially
is.
if she was in text communication with him either before or after um, the incident. Like, I think it's very important to hear. It's not just wanting to hear the nitty-gritty details, but I wanna understand every aspect of what she was going through because I think the hardest thing when it comes to trials and cases like this is understanding how someone could do this.
That's what we like to discuss here is the trying to understand where,
Why?
like what, yeah, you'll never understand the why, but I
Mhm.
try to understand what combination of what situations, emotions, feelings, your mental status has combined to where you got to this point, the nature versus nurture, was this
Mhm.
a perfect storm of circumstances that could lead a very normal person to do a very horrific thing? Is it something that you're battling and you were born with, something was off? Is it a combination of both? I love to try to understand. So with Leilani, she not only, and this was interesting nugget too, it's not only cocaine and marijuana we're dealing with. There was self-admitted, she said that she was extremely messed up this night on drugs, and it included also Percocet that she got from her drug
We
dealer.
learned that today,
Yes,
right?
we
That
learned that today.
now that goes to that's how I don't even understand why this is in trial. Her knowing seeing all this discovery, why is she even fighting this is my very first question. But the second we have gone from her going to, "I'm completely clean, I'll go do a pee test now, you can
Mhm.
I haven't done pills, I don't do pills, I haven't done pills in months," to now we found out in the trial, I mean, I felt like we've already known, but now we found out in the trial she did a line of coke, she went and got a Percocet, she, smoked a
Joint.
joint,
Mhm.
whatever it's called,
Yeah,
sorry.
no, you're
And
fine.
she was extremely, extremely messed up.
She was extremely messed up, and so are we gonna pretend that the person that she met up with mere hours prior to Quentin's murder is not relevant for that alone? But then are
Absolutely.
we going to argue that someone that she has been, and I don't, is it called an affair if you're not married? I'm not sure.
I think so. I
Okay.
think that, people in relationships, it's still called an affair. Like, it's not an extramarital affair, it's an
Right.
extra relationship affair, I suppose, but I still think it's called an affair.
So we'll go with an affair. Are we going to pretend that an affair is not going to be extremely relative in terms of somebody's mental state at the time that they committed a murder? It is. And especially if she was communicating things that were going on in her relationship, things that she was upset about, it absolutely will give us insight into what led her to make this choice, because it was a choice,
It
okay?
was.
But also knowing if she was that heavy of a drug user, which again today we learned she self-admitted to be using cocaine and stuff every single day, which that is a hard habit to maintain. But are we going to believe that starting the day after Quentin's murder
She
she went
stopped.
cold turkey? I
Yeah.
believe she would have met him after, because
Mhm.
what she just all of a sudden went from using every day for years to, nope, I went, no,
I
I think she
I
would have met
don't
him after.
I don't think it's possible. I do think that if you saw Leilani out here on YouTube, once they started doing their panel tour or being on camera and stuff, I do think that we did see a period before she went into rehab where she was starting to withdraw, come clean from, her substances and stuff. But watching these interview videos, and I said that way back when, it's like, do you think it's possible she was still on, like, she was currently using in some of these just by the way she reacts several times?
She's
And
very histrionic. She is.
and I wonder if that's going to come out in these text messages that that not only was she using the night of, she continued to use afterwards. That could be something Sassy Pants is afraid of.
He's afraid of something. It was the first time so far that I've seen him get, I don't know what word to describe it, but there was something different in his demeanor and he wasn't happy about it. And he keeps asking about it on the breaks. Like he keeps circling back around to these witnesses. Why? What is this witness taking the stand? And now I'm thinking back to him arguing those messages, right? At the time, we didn't know just how relevant this could be, but there's something there. But then I battle myself because I'm like, if something was there, why wouldn't prosecution have them on the list to begin with?
I really think that no, Allie's in here. Didn't they were excluded pre-trial, weren't they? In the motions in limine. So I agree with you. Maybe what is it that is bugging him so much?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point.
Becky says, Melissa Jade saw in chat that Billy Joe isn't testifying. Anyone know if that's true? I can't confirm or deny. I don't know. I know Shay tried to get the witness list, but it took, like, she couldn't download it or something. But that would surprise me, because even Shay asked me this morning, do you think Billy Joe's going to be called as a prosecution or defense witness? And I figured she would be called as a prosecution's witness to kind of set up that foundation of the mutual kinship agreement, to get a good understanding of what was that agreement, what was the day-to-day environment as far as Quentin and his older brother, and what was it supposed to be versus what was it now. And I thought while she was up on the stand, defense was going to use it as an opportunity to ask more flattering type of questions that they know Billy Joe will give us some insight into your daughter and how you see her. So I would be surprised if she's just not called as a witness, period. But at the same time, if she's not called so much as a character witness or laying that foundation for the kinship agreement, she wasn't there.
Yeah. Well, so here's why I thought she was going to be called. Because she would tell people on the internet how much she was involved with law enforcement in basically getting Leilani. Like, she came out here and claimed that she was working with law enforcement. I'm working with law enforcement. Hold tight. We're trying to get answers because I'm working with law enforcement. If that were the case, I would think she was going to be called as a witness. However, the more that I have heard through the interviews of Leilani, the testimony of Danny and others, I believe that it was quite contentious behind the scenes. Yeah. And I'm currently to the point where I feel like Billy Joe doesn't look good for either side. And that's possibly why she's not going to testify. I think that Paul worked, but he was kind of a wash, wasn't he? And so it's like,
I don't like, I feel like they had to put him on because he was there. And they were questioning why there's another adult in this house and you didn't call him as a witness, but poor Paul. Poor Paul. Yeah, I think he was I don't know what the juries will take away, but you said something on your live. I think it was you didn't stream. No, you streamed Friday. You streamed all day Friday. You said you have to realize that this jury comprises of 12 random people just like us sitting here in this chat. So every single one of us who do not share the same opinion, which it's filled, right? Even this chat right now, everyone's going to feel a different way. That's what the jury is. So we can't just, well, this is what the jury is going to think. No, we are the jury, you know, like like it's a perfect example. What's the likelihood that, and it's actually 16 people sitting because we have the alternates. What's the likelihood that everyone's going to feel the same way? So I have no idea what they're going to take away from
How they
Paul.
felt about it.
Yeah. Pizza for Paul.
Paul was all over the place. I don't think he hurt either side, and I don't think he helped either side. But I do think what Paul brought to us in this trial is the relatability to the people in this, to Danny, to Leilani, and to himself. Like, you know, sometimes we get to feeling like when we watch trials that these people they don't even seem real sometimes in some of the situations, and Paul kind of grounded everything and brought it back down to, these are these people, this is what they were doing, because he would say bad stuff about Leilani, and he'd say bad stuff about Danny. He just kind of laid it out like it is. But with Billy Joe, I think that one of the reasons, if she's not called by the state and she's not called by the defense, my thought process behind that is that they both think that her testimony could hurt their case for both of them. So that's kind of where I stand. Because she can't not testify. If she's called, she has to.
She has to, right?
But so if they're not calling her, I gotta think it's something like that.
Well, and that's interesting. T. Adam says the lawyer said that they may be charging her after this trial. And I don't know. I'm not educated enough to be able to say, hey, yeah, I see X, Y, and Z. And I don't know. But what I am surprised of is that she was there for every court case really leading up to trial. And so I know a lot of us expected her absence so far to be because she was a witness, and you can't sit in the gallery, you know, while it's going on if you're going to be a witness at some point in the future. And so I am surprised if it is true, and I'm not saying it's true. I heard, you know, like that she was saying that in chats. I don't know. But two things. One, that you're not there then.
Yeah, that says a lot, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Because Leilani's side it's the sound guy and like one Jane Doe in the back. Okay.
We got up close and personal with the sound guy. I'm sure you were gone by then, but I had a little snafu on my live stream earlier, and it just kept playing. It was a silent stream, but anyway, they messed with the cameras after court today, and he had to go sit up in the witness box, our sound guy did, and they zoomed in on his face, they zoomed in on his nose, his mouth. He looked so annoyed. It was just like a funny little moment.
That is funny. Because I think it was you who said like day one, like that sound guy, his facial expressions are what we're all thinking.
He wears his thoughts on his face, which is how I am most of the time, so I can empathize with that.
But the other part that, and yes, as far as I'm understanding, the mutual kinship agreement consisted of basically Leilani not being left alone. Billy Joe was supposed to be taking primary. It's not custody. It's a mutual kinship agreement. So I don't know if it's guardian. I don't know how it falls as far as terms in the court. But Leilani wasn't supposed to be left alone with the two boys without another adult presence. That's my understanding.
But we did hear in her very first interview she gave to law enforcement, she says that's just a workaround in paperwork, essentially. So by her saying that to police on day one, I'm thinking, that's probably what it was the whole time. That's another spot I kind of feel lied to about out here on YouTube, but it sounds like that's exactly what it was them to work around the system so that Leilani wouldn't get her children taken away from her.
Hi, Allie.
Hey. Oh my gosh. I could not wait to get up here because I wanted to tell you some of the things from the last witness. Like I was rushing around.
I was running.
Yes. I even spilt my Sprite like in the house trying to grab my notebook.
Wait, Sprite? You're a yellow mellow type of gal.
I know, but here lately, like I've been getting like a weird tummy ache, and the Sprite helps it. So
MJ knows all of our sodas. She has them.
Well, because I never heard of Yellow Mellow before Allie, and I never heard of Pib before you. So
It's too funny.
it is funny.
Sodas.
Okay.
Yeah, tell me.
Okay, so Savannah Solomon, she was the last witness. And okay, there's a few things. First of all, she notes that she said that on October 5th, on day one, so it was odd, Leilani mentioned getting a tattoo in honor of Quentin.
Yes.
And she was like, it, you know, in honor. She just, I guess,
October 5th?
Yes.
October. Oh, you missed this, MJ.
I woke back up when Lord Farquaad was rebuttal, like doing his cross. So I heard something about that tattoo, but I didn't know what it like. I didn't know.
Yes.
Tell her all about it, Allie. This is crazy.
Well, all I have in my notes and what I remember otherwise is just she already had a tattoo with some waves on it or something like that.
It was something to her Hawaiian heritage, yes.
Yeah, and she said that she wanted to add something with that in honor of Quentin, and that's all really I remember and what I wrote down. But
well,
yeah.
and super. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Beth.
No, he was just missing on October 5th.
Exactly, that's the part. Like, and Superman was asking her, like, was it a memorial tattoo? And of course, you know, Sassy Pants was objecting over and over, but he finally got the question out in pieces enough to where we heard from Solomon that, in her opinion, that's exactly what Leilani was wanting, was a memorial type tattoo added to the current tattoo on day one.
Yep.
Day one.
Day one. So then this came out. This blew my mind too. So I guess Leilani's being interviewed by a person named Bridget Brock. And during this interview, Savannah Solomon was in the observation room watching. And when Bridget Brock left the room, Leilani checked the cameras and looked down the hall and unplugged the lady's computer. And then,
yes.
Yeah.
What? You know what? Okay.
Yeah.
Was that had something to do with Misty the Orgel lady, right?
This was like, I wrote in my notes, this was during the interviews of Leilani and Danny. Like, I think this is one of the first ones. And so, yeah, that would make sense if it was something surrounding Misty.
I was coming in and out of service when this was being talked about. And it's like one of the things I jotted down in my notes on my phone to go back and listen to, because it was something surrounding Misty and the Orgel conversation. And I was like, she unplugged the computer?
Yes.
What?
Unplugged it?
I wrote, Leilani unplugged Miss Brock's computer after looking at the cameras and down the hallway. And then it made a sound and she plugged it back in.
Oh my God.
Why? She looked at the camera.
Now, then she says, a couple days later, when this hotel observation thing like they were talking about it, which is the 7th, Danny, she says, by this point, Danny was broken. She said, broken in a few ways. One, and this is her words, he was worried about his child. But two, he was torn between catching Leilani in lies and feeling like he had to support Leilani. And at this point, this is when like it turned and he decided to work with police. And he actually is the first one who mentioned the hotel room being bugged. They were going to ask him, but he must have known they were going down that road, and he actually mentioned it first.
Wow.
He brought it up, yeah.
Because I did remember hearing before I fell asleep that initially Danny had Leilani's back 100%, and he was defending her and advocating for her, which that speaks volumes to me, because that's what I would expect. You know, you're gonna be a little bit blinded when you have a relationship with someone, and the same way Al, right, didn't want to initially think, you know, Letitia could do something like that, you know, but the fact that just a little bit of time and your brain starts to go, huh, you know, and the fact that he was so open and he signed a 30-day monitor of his phone 3 times, it should be 90 days. He allowed them to bug. Listen, if he had any involvement, you don't think Leilani would be like, yo, so they did you, they found out about XYZ, or why are you acting like you didn't have involvement? We would hear that. There is no, you can't just remove bits and pieces and only have them screen what you want them to screen. It is all out there. And that's exactly what I would do if I was in that situation.
But Melissa, it wasn't just him. It was also his mother who signed off as well.
Yeah.
We
Yep.
learned that today.
Oh.
Yeah. And okay, so then she said, she's asked the hotel observation, is there anything like basically for her opinion on their behavior towards each other? And she said they were never on the same page about what was going on with Quentin. Leilani repeated the Oragel story and doubled down on that. So then it kind of shifts, because we'll come back to that in a second, but then it shifted to when she told Leilani that she thought that Quentin was deceased. And she said, she tells Leilani, and she's like, I'm 95% sure we're going to find him in the landfill. And Leilani responded with, quote, he wasn't in the bag, unquote.
What?
And what Allie means by the bag is we learned through the last interview that's shown, the one that's like over an hour and you can barely hear it, that she ends up throwing away stinky food, and they dig in hard on her on this stinky food that she threw away, so much so that she even mimics what she did to throw it away. And she says she uses one hand to throw it away, but when she's showing the act of it, she's using two hands and then like pushing it up and in and over the dumpster.
I heard you say her mouth was saying the lie, but her body was telling the truth.
Exactly. And she also admitted to opening the bag and sniffing it. Who's going to open a bag and sniff stinky food that is supposedly filling up your entire vehicle with a stinky odor? In my mind, it's like she probably opened it up and took that last smell of, because we know how babies smell, like little kids, and that's what her actions were showing, even though she was saying something different, in my opinion. So that's where when Allie,
I don't think she would have been taking a woof as the last smell, because if we know what the condition of these remains were, she probably was trying to figure out, is this odor strong enough to be detected?
I don't know. It's just the way that it was said. That's what it reminds me of, is that, that you're, when you hold your baby and you sniff their head,
right?
You know what I mean?
They
like
have
it's
that
just
amazing smell.
Yes, like you can't mimic. There's nothing that mimics that smell ever,
Right.
but it's just the best smell ever. But just the way that she said that, she might not even have done it. It's just the way that she says that about this stinky food. That's the vibe it gives.
Stood out to you, yeah.
And then showing the two-hand push over the dumpster. You're not going to take a sack of takeout and use two hands and push it over the dumpster,
No.
And so that's what Allie's talking about when she tells the special agent that he wasn't in the sack.
Yeah,
That's
he
what
wasn't in.
he's saying.
And the agent said, she was not, surprised, upset, anything. And she goes on to get into when she notified Billy Joe. Billy Joe's mentioned a few times in her testimony, but so she says, when I told Billy Joe, I'm going to tell you three things. After each thing, I'm going to pause, and I'll let you get yourself together before I tell you the next thing. We actually never heard what the third one was, but the first thing was Quentin died. She thinks Quentin died, and for certain. And then the second thing was, and we're going to find him in the landfill. I'm almost certain of it. She said that Billy Joe immediately said, my baby's in the trash. And she was shock, horror, disbelief. She said all the people in that home had five different levels of anguish, but Leilani, none of that.
See,
all she said was he wasn't in the sack.
Yep.
See, with Billy Joe, I think she wasn't surprised from the first part, because I think she knew, you could see in that interview, that infamous interview, when Leilani was like, I hope, like somebody has him and he's just, having, dinner and feeding him and being nice to him. And Billy Joe, she literally turns away, and her the pain that's on her face, she knew in that moment that something was terribly wrong, but she probably had no idea, because I don't think Leilani probably would have told her. So it probably was a shock as far as the landfill, because she wouldn't have known she went to the dumpster. tossed it, so that part probably was, he's in the trash, like,
Yeah.
and
Well, she said Billy Joe was, everyone was how you would expect, which the lawyer kind of presses her on what's enough level of emotion for you and stuff like that. But she never tells us the third thing. I believe, in my opinion, it was going to be, and we think Leilani did it, but we didn't get to hear that. But it's interesting because the very next thing, you talking about the news interview, the next thing they get into is that. And the very same day that she's on the news saying, I will take myself to the police station, we want justice for Quentin, that is the same day that she sends a text about, I'm not lying for Danny anymore. That text. Yeah. And then at the same time, she's on the wiretap telling Danny, I'm actually been cooking dinner and cleaning, all the things I should have done for you, the things that you deserved, and the infamous, I will never do cocaine again. It makes me angry and impulsive. She tells him that quote there the same day she has an interview with police where she's blaming him, because they bring her in after that text and they do interviews, 2 separate interviews, just to get her story down, where she's like kind of blaming him. And eventually it comes out from this same witness that Leilani at the end says, that wasn't true. It was just a theory she had. Like, she walked it back, blaming Danny. But another thing, okay, so this came out too, a couple things. This lady was like so involved in the search for Quentin. She was there at least twice a day. She actually physically searched. She was doing administration stuff. And on the day that he was found,
She was at a meeting with the attorney general, and when she got the notification that a piece was found, and she said she shut down the meeting and left immediately and headed to the landfill and was there the rest of the night.
And then the rest of the night, and it took, once they spread out the trash, he was found throughout a football field and a half worth of trash spread out. And
what they could find,
and then they start going through the pictures, and that's the pictures I sent you, Melissa. When they start showing Quentin, they show the part of the skull and then the foot, and we don't get to see them. They're more graphic than the ones we've already seen, but similar pictures. These are just taken like on the scene, and they're more clear. But then they show his foot, and they say something about you could see his little, what's left of a baby toenail. And Leilani, that's when she kind of starts to get a little emotional. And I don't know if it's she's so disgusted with herself, she's embarrassed. I don't know what these emotions truly are.
One single tear here.
I think she was pinching herself under the table trying to get that tear out. I'm serious. Like, the whole time we're listening to this, the special agent is choking up, describing what the jury is looking at. And it's a lot. Like, I was telling everyone, step out if you have to, because it was a lot. Even just hearing it, not even seeing it. And even pretend for a second that Leilani is innocent. This is her child that she is seeing on this same screen, that she is hearing the same testimony about, and all she could muster up was one single tear?
One single tear.
No.
Well, if you look, Melissa, I sent you one more just now. This woman took such care after they felt like, you could tell that this was so hard for her, and that she, to me, it seems like she decided she was going to be a huge part of this, and she was going to find him and make, she took it very personally. So she talks about taking the parts and the bags and wrapping it up in this box. And remember that photo we saw of the flag that was
the flag,
so that was actually
box.
his remains. And the picture I sent you is the way that she rode with him in her truck. She personally drove his remains to the next person to hand them off to go for testing, but she drove them herself like that.
She said, we could not FedEx him. We could not ship him. We could not get him there by any other means than personally escorting him there.
Yeah, and she said it like, and I rode with Quentin to like, oh God, it was emotional. It was tough, but yeah, so that's his little remains in there.
What I said is that she took more care of Quentin in his afterlife than Leilani did when he was alive. And You can't
Yeah.
convince me otherwise. Just
You're
the
right.
emotion and the descriptive words that she was using. She took extreme care of that little boy.
Yeah.
But
You're so right.
can like, and I know we've talked about it before. We talked about it when they first recovered, partial remains, but just to hear again over a football field in different zones, and even, it's they reference it as, a little bone here, a little piece of flesh there. Like that, I remember when it came out and it was like, oh my God, like they detailed it. This
Yeah.
before trial. And but to let that sink in, and now that we did get to see a couple of photos, I don't know if it was day one, we're talking about very, very little fragments, little pieces of him.
Mhm.
The fact that, and if you remember the photos of them searching, everything's the same color. Everything looks the same because everything has gone through a brutal process to compact, and
Yep.
it's a horrible process when you have the knowledge that a 20-month-old baby is in there. The fact that they do you know how meticulous, do you know how long, like every little tiny piece, like among, I, I don't even know how much trash that is.
Well, Special Agent Solomon touched on that a little bit. She said once the first piece was found, the skull, she said we knew then that we would more than likely find the rest of him within a 6-foot radius of that piece.
Where
And
it had been
so
compacted.
yeah, because I mean, you got to think that's still a lot of stuff. It's just because it's like Ali said, so compacted. So they spread out the stuff that they were going on the deck is what she called it. And the deck is the length of a half of a football field. And so that half of a football field is filled with everything where they find that piece. And then they went to the previous, well, they went ahead one more deck and then they went to the previous one. And then they meticulously went through the first one again. So they
With
redid
bags.
it.
Each of them
Mhm.
had like bags taped on them because when they would
Oh,
find one, they would just put it in their bag. And this is another thing. Oh God, this is awful. But they found like skin and flesh that was like the
Yeah.
they
size of a
did.
toddler. That
Yeah.
was
The
the size
head.
of a toddler. One piece. It's she said from like the shoulder to the foot. I think right, Thief?
Yep. Yep.
Really, I just can't believe I fell asleep for this one witness that had all this information, and that is her. They found,
Yep.
wow.
Mhm.
Yep. You
Oh
just
my God.
that's why I wanted to come up so bad because I'm not gonna, I wanted to tell you and get all this off of my chest anyway and be able to like say
'Cause
it
it's
all. So it's
so
perfect.
frustrating.
It is so frustrating and so, oh my God, it's just emotional watching
It
it.
it
Yeah.
is, and it's by the grace of God, the same way that Gannon was, that happened to be found right after Letitia was arrested and charged. And just so happened once every 5 years, a bridge inspector comes, and it just so happened this bridge inspector came and saw that suitcase, and he went on about his day, but something about it was like, all right, let me check what's in there, because it didn't have an odor or anything. It was the grace of, I don't know, some higher power. Okay. It was
Yeah.
divine intervention that he was found. Same thing with Quentin. There's
Yeah.
Yeah.
something that the fact that they even recovered partial remains, it's, I don't know, it's some type of higher power, because that was
The
such a meticulous task.
I
the
agree.
only time I heard Special Agent Solomon get kind of like intense was when she was relaying when she told Leilani that well they were telling the whole family that they believed Quentin was deceased and in the landfill, and Allie told that story earlier. And she said she was very adamant to Leilani, he's in that landfill and I'm gonna find him. And so
Yep.
like you could just tell,
She was
and that might not be a
determined.
direct quote, but like
Yep.
you could just tell how determined she was. No matter what, she was going to find him.
And she took this personally. Oh, and this came out from her, but I think we're going to hear more about this because remember the one officer who talked about the pack and play and I didn't test it and I don't know if it's blood?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, Agent Solomon said the pack and play, the pillow and the pillowcase from the pack and play was sent to Quantico for testing. So I think we'll hear
Oh,
from someone of what those results were. It's just that
Idea.
particular guy didn't do it, so that's
Hmm.
why.
and
Yes, we had
welcome,
heard
Jojo.
Snyder kind of testified to that he had they were handed off to Agent Solomon. She didn't testify to the results, so I think we still have some
Right.
special agents, possibly from Quantico, coming in telling us what the results of the pillow and the pack and play were.
Yep.
Oh, and I
agree.
noticed that too, Lori. The way that Leilani reacts listening to the sidebars, as if she reacts every time the prosecutor makes his argument, right? And she's feeding off of Lord Farquaad. She's feeding off, like, when he's getting angry, she feels like she could get angry. But she puts these headphones on and her facial expressions as if she understands the fucking terminology in court
Right?
lingo.
That's what
I'm
I
like,
was
"Bitch,
saying.
shut up.
I was like, you don't even know what they're talking
You don't
about.
understand
Take
what
the
they're even
headphones off. Come on.
Take those headphones off, man."
I
What
feel
did
myself getting angrier and
I
angrier
know?
with her as this trial progresses.
Yep.
Same.
And don't forget, she was told, like, don't be reacting, because she mouthed with a minor on the stand, the babysitter's daughter. Well, the babysitter's sister. I think we all associated Diane Michelle as the babysitter, but she is the mom of the
babysitter.
literal babysitter. Yeah. And then the younger daughter testified. And she literally mouthed, like, that's a fucking lie.
Yeah.
We know she's a
Show you
minor.
have
Yeah.
show you have no self-control, Leilani.
None.
And then with Paul, she mouthed, I love you. And so she was already reprimanded, as far as, like, the judge says, I didn't see it, and I'm not saying you did, but just, moving forward, don't be doing any of that. So she was already told not to. But so her facial expressions, I'm like, that doesn't help you. Like, I know you're trying to reiterate to the jury, like, when you are not agreeing with what a witness is saying, but you don't need that. And then I just caught this of her she's always popping something in her mouth. She's always eating. That's a mint, okay? But I don't know how, even on the day where Quentin's partial remains are shown, she's licking her fingers and eating. And I'm like, what are you doing? Out of everyone here, you should be the most distraught, yet you're not.
Yeah. And oh my gosh, whenever they showed the pictures of what they found at the landfill, the news zoomed in like super close to her face, super close at one point, and she looked at them, and you can tell. I'm wondering if she can see the monitor or something. She knows when she's on camera. You could tell she looked at them when they zoomed. But also, Claus had said that when the camera's not on her, she's like laughing with her attorneys and stuff, but when it's on her, she becomes a lot more like no emotion face.
I've seen her eyeing the camera a few times. So she's aware. I'm not sure if she could see herself, but that's interesting.
Well, I would say that she's absolutely aware of it. Just going from that testimony of her unplugging the computer, she looks straight at that the police camera down the hallway and unplugs it and plugs it back in. Like, I don't think that. I don't know how to word this. I don't think this is a she snapped. I do think it is she snapped, but I also don't think it's like they're trying to, well, they're not, the defense isn't trying to portray it. She was trying to portray, when they were doing their social media tour, that, like, if she had done something, it would have been a snapped blackout moment that she was not aware of at all, and she would completely own up to it if she, became aware of her doing something. I think that she was, even though she was higher than a freaking guy, I think she's cognitive of what she did.
Now, what did you guys think of the babysitter? Like, to hop back to Friday, and I'm just gonna have this play like as we talk. Oh no, Allie, she'll come back. But we had, so Thursday night, which is the end of day 5, the last witness was the babysitter's sister, so Diane Michelle's daughter. She was a minor, so she wasn't shown on camera, but she was so well spoken. She was so respectful, but she absolutely depicted very, very sad circumstances of abuse, the differential treatment between Quentin and his older brother and his younger sister. Instances of Leilani, and that's what kind of popped up in my mind, Allie, when you were talking about this tattoo, and she had waves and she wanted to do this, total Casey Anthony vibes. But it's, wait a second, Quentin loved water, because we heard the witness explain how you pushed him into the pool even though he wasn't able to swim, without any floaties on, because he had to learn the way that Zane
Like
was.
Zane did, yeah.
Right. And so she also detailed, like just a lot of instances of abuse with Quentin. And so then Friday morning we heard from Diane, and Diane Michelle was the first one up on the stand, and she was pushed hard from Lord Farquaad as far as, did you call in any of the abuse? Did you call DFAX? And she's like, I didn't have to. They contacted me. And he didn't
did
like
not
that.
want that in. He did
Yeah.
not want that in. He just wanted it to be a yes or no, and he kept like reiterating that, and Diane wasn't giving it to him.
Nope. Now it was, first of all, she was paid shit in comparison to how much she had these babies. It seemed like the family was taking care of them together. And they had, Quentin and the,
Zane.
Zane from 5 something in the morning till almost 5 at night. Like, this was an all day thing. But it seemed like it wasn't a bother, but she said that Quentin would be stinky, like from everyone knows, like when a baby drinks milk, like even though he was 20 months old, but like the curdling that could get underneath like the neck because it dribbles down, and you have to keep out where it's to get sour, smelly. That's what it seemed like she was depicting. Like so the first thing she would do is bathe him. And I think I don't know why I was expecting more from her as a witness, but then I was like, well, why would I? Maybe
Yeah.
because it was just so relevant in the beginning. I expected more, but there really wasn't more she could testify to.
That's true. I think she did a great job as well, and she stuck to her guns. I do like that she was like, "Yeah, I thought Leilani was a shit mom." She said that like multiple
Yep.
times.
Yep.
And not just the fact that they had the kids all day long, and we saw that, Leilani and Danny leave work, go get this tooth pulled and taken care of, then they go out to lunch, then they go home. Did you catch that? Then they go
Mm-hmm.
home and chill until it's time to go pick up the kids. In my life, if I had a babysitter and, I'm not working, I'm done working early, and, there's 4 extra hours I could spend with my kids, I'm going to pick up my kids. But nope, they left them there until it was,
Yep.
the designated time. But even beyond that, Diana explained how they would sometimes just go and get Quentin. Like, they would go and
Yep.
get him and keep him because they just knew what his life, specifically his life, was like.
Yeah.
And I have other thoughts and feelings that are just my own personal ones, but hearing them do that, that takes an extra special heart to be willing to just go above and beyond to do that for,
Yeah.
the neighbor kid, the kid you babysit. It's definitely extra special.
She also said that, when Leilani would pick Quentin up, Quentin would cry and
Yeah.
not want to go. But when Danny would pick him up, he would run to him and hug him.
And we heard that from 3 witnesses prior, is that Quentin would, Danny, and
Yes.
so when I hear multiple witnesses say, I'm more likely to believe, yep, that very much did happen. Not mommy, not mom, Danny.
Yeah.
But Diane also explained how, with Leilani working at Bojangles, she would bring home, the bag of food, but she would always feed Zane first. And I didn't like how Lord Farquaad was like, what? He was younger. Is it not rational? He had to wait a few minutes? No, if you have, numerous children, that you plate it up and you give them both at the same time, or else it's going to be a war. Now, if you want to argue that he may have a slightly smaller portion given he was, a year younger, okay,
That's understandable.
but not feed Zane while it's hot and sit down and no, you wait, even though you're hungry, Quentin, wait, and then I'll feed you.
It was basically like, you'll get Zane's leftovers. That's
Yes,
how
that's
I
how
took
I
that.
took it.
It sounds like, you can have whatever he doesn't eat. And I, had said that my kids are kind of Irish twins. They're a little bit further apart than 12 months. They're 14 months apart. But when I was, feeding them at the same time, of course they're going to get it at the same time, but I would always give it to the youngest first while I'm finishing the eldest plate, because the youngest always has a little less patience than the older one, especially when they're that young. So
Yeah.
that really stuck out to me that she was willing to just like it always went to Zane and then basically the leftovers went to Quentin. That was heartbreaking to
Poor
hear.
baby, man. That's just so sad. It's just so sad to think about, like,
It
what his
is.
little life was like, and then to know he was so happy still. You know,
And
he was just a happy
that's
baby.
true. And I do take that's the big takeaway from the babysitter and the daughter's testimony is that he was loved. Um,
Hmm.
Not as
Yeah,
much that I would have liked him to see by the people in his life, but he was loved. And I'm
yeah,
happy he got to experience that.
I agree.
Now, what do you guys think so far? You know, we just finished day 6, we're going on to day 7. What do you think was the biggest thing we've learned so far in this trial? Or
Oh,
the most damning?
there's a lot of little things. I there's not a lot of actual evidence yet.
Right.
Most of it's circumstantial, but I think it's very strong circumstantial evidence. You know, we don't actually see her in the dumpster footage, right? But we have her being very adamant that she goes to get Orgel. She's the only one repeating this story. She's the only one changing it into this or that. You know, they went through the phone data this morning. Her phone's the only one that leaves and does all
Right.
these things. When when Leilani tells the story of the Orgel for the very first time, the very first thing I picked up on was Danny's head cock. Like, you left the
Right. Yep,
house?
you said that. Yep.
He didn't know, and you could tell from his body language he did not know she had left again that night. When you add up all that circumstantial evidence and her lying not only in public to law enforcement, but in private to Danny, like continuing the story. Because okay, here's the thing: if Danny really was behind this, like she was trying to portray there towards the end that like, oh, he made me do it, then why in private is she trying to convince him of an Orgel story? If she
Right.
knows
Yep.
that he's the
He
one who
knows.
left the home,
Exactly.
why would she be trying to convince him that she truly did meet up with Misty the meth head? Like, why?
That's
It
what
just
I'm
it
saying.
doesn't
You
make
know, like
sense. Yeah.
it, you can't monitor, you can't prevent, hey, only the good parts have you here. No,
Yeah.
Danny opened it up for full transparency. And thank you, Nicole. And she never once indicated at all that Danny had any additional knowledge. It seemed like she was lying to him also, and she was trying to
Mhm.
convince him. But it's interesting that the moment he pulled back, what did she do? It takes one type of evil to do something like this yourself, but it takes
Yes.
another type of evil on top of that to be willing to implicate an innocent person in the crime you committed. And I saw that with Letitia, and I see this now with Leilani, where are you honestly willing to have an innocent person, you know they're innocent, you did it, go down for this crime, such a
But
horrific crime?
MJ, if you think about it, this struck me today when Superman brought it up. It wasn't just Danny that she was trying to implicate in this. She brought a complete stranger, well, not really stranger, but a person that she rarely talks to, hadn't spoken to since July, into this mix. Just boom, instantly, first day, very first time law enforcement question her on it. She's like, "Oh yeah, I went and met Misty over there." So now this random person who has nothing to do with this whole scenario is
Yep.
drugged into this entire thing and is questioned. Could you imagine how she feels now? She's questioned by the FBI, her husband's questioned by the FBI, and she had no clue at all about that night. Now, I do think they found her credible quickly considering there's no communication between her and Leilani, but the simple fact that you're just going about your life at work one day and the FBI show up
Yeah.
to
Right.
find out if
And
you gave this woman whose kid's missing Orgel in the middle of the night.
and you might not remember it because you were smoking crack.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Like,
another
what?
thing. You're totally defaming her character throughout your testimony of saying, "Oh, well, she probably just doesn't remember it because she's always smoking crack. She's always doing this." Like,
Yes.
just totally. I mean, she might not be lying on her, but still, just the fact that she even put all that in there, it's like that woman didn't deserve that at all. I
No.
don't know her from Adam, but she still didn't deserve that.
Mhm.
Just crazy.
For
Craziness.
me, I think the
Mhm.
most impactful witness, though, like Danny brought a lot. Like there was a lot we learned, especially knowing that, like you said, his phone, the hotel, but today that Solomon, like that, knowing she unplugged the computer, her attitude when she was told he was likely deceased, versus everyone in the house, like, oh my gosh, I was absolutely blown away. I'm still just, I cannot believe. And I don't know what she expected, like when she
I
unplugged
agree.
the computer. I don't know, or like when she had the conversation about how she gets angry and becomes another person with the police. What is she
Right.
expecting to
Yeah,
gain?
she's sitting there telling Solomon that, like, she's like, "Oh yeah, when I do these things, I just snap and I go into a blind rage." That's basically what she said. Like,
Yeah.
what do you think they're gonna do with that?
I
Like,
see a
seriously?
really immature mentality, which her brain wasn't even fully developed, at that point.
Yeah.
And then
How old
the
was she
long
again?
term usage, she was, what was she, 19 there? No, how old was
No,
she there?
I want to say 23.
Oh, I'm way off then. Either way, your brain doesn't fully fucking develop till you're like 25, okay?
I know,
And
yeah, I know Danny was
long term,
28. I remember Danny was 28, and I want to say she was 22, 23, but I could be wrong.
22. Oh, she would have been using cocaine. I'm sorry. She would have been using cocaine on a almost daily basis since she was at least like 19.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so God only knows the long-term effects that has on you. And so you have that long-term drug use is a very hard drug, a drug that really truly impacts your decision making, a lot of things. And then you have immaturity, your brain not fully freaking developed. And I'm sure she wasn't getting full REM sleep every single night. You're up all night doing lines and fighting and this and that.
And red.
So it seemed like she was, well, yeah, doing right.
Yeah.
So it seemed like she was making decisions, not realizing like, okay, well, this isn't working, so let me go with this angle. Let me try this, as if that was going to help you at all. But Allie, you weren't here before when we discussed about Red coming in as a witness, Red and Tim coming in as a witness, and Lord Farquhar seeming a little nervous about it. What do you think?
I don't know. I was listening to you guys. I was driving and you were saying, like, I would think though, if they had something that big, they would have been witnesses originally. I don't have a clue. I don't know what to expect, so I don't even want to guess because I agree. I think that he seems nervous. So it's like, why? But if they
Right.
had something that big, why weren't they originally witnesses?
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know what to think.
What's going to
But
be within these messages? A sex liaison.
Something is
I,
in these
I'm
messages.
so glad we get to hear them and that they're testifying. But I got to
Mhm.
go help Emmy wash her hair. So I'm going to jump off here and finish
Okay.
in the chat. But
Okay.
thank you
Is it
for letting
on
me
your
come up
channel or Bendy's tonight? Which,
on mine.
okay.
Yeah.
So we'll see you. We'll see you in 25 minutes. Allie's
Yes.
and Bendy are doing another drop of calls with Letitia. And so
Yeah.
we will be
But
off when she goes live.
well, also, if you're not done, like I could push it back a few minutes or something.
Oh, you're
I'm not.
fine.
Okay. Well,
I'm
I'm going to
excited.
be in the chat listening to you guys. And yeah, thank
Thanks
you
for
for letting me
coming
come
up.
up.
Of
Okay.
course.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, so let me see. So we had, oh, okay. Well, no, that wasn't the doctor. I don't, who was that guy with the glasses? I don't even remember. Oh, he was going through the footage. Okay.
Yeah, he
So
did the
there's
data stuff.
there's so many breaks. This judge takes a break after a break.
It's a lot of breaks.
It's a lot of breaks. They have a very strange layout of the house. So this is the layout of the house, which I remember going through the Zillow photos originally, like when the case was actively happening. But this is the room that the kids and Leilani and Danny stayed in. Leilani and Danny's bed was over here.
Right.
Zane's car bed was here, and Quentin's playpen was right here. Well, wait, no, or was it right? Was it right here?
No, because that's where where
No.
the star is the front door.
Oh, I
So
thought that said
yeah, they
front door.
have
That's
it
what I was
labeled
confused.
wrong, remember?
Oh, yes. Okay.
So kind of where the front door is on this image is where his pack and play is.
I don't know how a juror. Okay, so I'm not going to say I don't know how a juror could ever fall asleep. There are certain witnesses where the testimony can be very redundant, like very not in layman's terms, so hard to follow. And some witnesses, and that's what circles me back around to appreciating at least Lord Farquaad keeping you engaged, because
Yes.
he says it in a way which I understand. He's very, very aggressive, and he can be disrespectful, but you're not going to forget what he said. You're not going to forget the points he's trying to make. And that's at least what I need to stay active and engaged and go,
Well,
like,
also, he just said that the juror had their eyes closed, and it was during all those pictures and that intense testimony. So I
Mhm.
wonder if the juror was just like sometimes, when stuff like that's hard, you do just close your eyes, you need to recenter, you're still listening, but you sometimes to get those images out of your mind or something, it could have been something like that as well. And I'm hopeful that that's what it was more so than falling asleep again, because that was such intense testimony when that juror had their eyes closed. So
Yeah.
I hope they weren't falling asleep.
Well, I hope they weren't falling asleep either, because I would have a big issue with a juror falling asleep, let alone once, not twice. You do
Yeah.
not want to. How can you make a decision if you don't have all the information? Which I
Mhm.
understand if that's maybe why the judge is. I think the judge is taking way too many breaks. Bless her heart, she is beautiful, she's educated, but even when it came to, I don't know, like there's too many breaks. There's too many breaks. And when I say that, I constantly refer back to Judge Werner, and Judge Werner acknowledged that these jurors are giving up time away from their family, giving up time away from their jobs. If they do have a job, you're not getting paid what you were normally getting paid to be there.
Right.
You have to stay off of the internet. You can't communicate. Like, it does take a burden. Some may have young kids at home. Like,
I don't
who
I don't know
knows?
what it is there in Georgia, but here, like, jury duty is, like, $22 a day.
Yes,
It
it's
is nothing.
shit.
Yeah.
Thank you, Okie Crime News, for becoming a member.
Thank
So
you.
with Judge Werner, and I'm not saying that if it's heavy testimony that you don't have an additional break, but it's usually mid-morning recess, lunch,
Mhm.
afternoon recess. And there's usually about 15 minutes for the recesses and then an hour for the lunch. And yes, if you happen to like, hey, we're about to have a really long witness, that was heavy, let's take an additional break here. No problem. But it seems like, because even the way one Lord Farquaad came in Friday morning and was like, hey, it's Friday, like, I'm tired. He started the day literally saying,
That's what he
I'm
said.
tired.
"I'm
I
tired.
don't
Can
want
we
to go
cut out
today.
early?" I was
Yeah.
like, "What?"
And the day didn't even start. Thank you, Nicole, for being a member for 3 months. The day didn't even start yet. And I thought that was extremely disrespectful, not just to the court, but to the jurors.
And
Okay.
it was also the day that they started late.
Yes.
So, I was like, "What?"
Okay. And so I respect with Judge Werner, I'd rather, these are the days I'd rather get as much in as we can. And so there were many times, and especially because we're rewatching it again right now, that there's 15 minutes left on the clock. And he's like, if we could get this in, let's get it in, because I want to utilize the jurors' time the best I can. Not to, hey, let me, but you'd rather 1 week of full days than 2 weeks of half days, but the breaks are insane. I can't even arrange around my day to know like what to expect, because I have no idea what time they're starting. They've been starting at different times every day. I have no idea what time they're
I
ending. They went
know.
so late today. It's all over the place.
It is. It is very much up and down. And then tomorrow they're gonna start a little bit later. I think she said 9:30 because
9:30.
she has, bail hearings in the morning, so yeah, they're just kinda here, there, everywhere. It's been interesting, that's for sure. I do like her as a judge, except for the breaks. That's the only part I don't like.
I'm I You know what though? I don't know if you noticed this. I'm a little bit concerned, And when I say that, I'm nobody, and so I shouldn't go up against any judge, okay? But I was a little bit concerned because when prosecution and defense were having their argument regarding allowing the binders in with the photos, Superman just got done explaining that he had none of this uploaded as digital photos at the time, that they were relying on the binders. And she listened to all of his argument only to then say, well, I got a brilliant idea. Why don't we show it on the big screen and then push the cameras away? And it's like, did you not listen to anything he said?
That's why he made the binders.
Right. I was like, excuse me, ma'am. But then she's like, and we're just back from a break. And she's like, let me go take another 20-minute break, which again, I wouldn't think it's ridiculous for her to want to thoroughly go through the binder, but it's only because we've had so many breaks already that it seems so excessive. And like, can you not make a decision on like, aren't you experienced enough to make a decision on the moment?
She wanted him to take the duplicates that they had already seen out of the binder, and he's like, none of them are duplicates because those were all the ones taken in Savannah, and the other one was taken in Quantico, and so I thought that was very interesting. We don't know what they look like, but
well, that was my second point, because she took the 20, actually it was longer than 20 minutes. She took time because you went back to earlier morning testimony during the break, and she took a lot of time, and okay, she's going through it, but she came back and she's like, 3 things, like, one, I want you to separate what's been confirmed as human remains and what hasn't, and take out anything that hasn't been confirmed. But like you said in your stream, they were kind of moving backwards, and I can't tell you what is what. Like, she has to go through, so you're asking me to do something that essentially I can't do with this witness. 2, take out any duplicates, and there weren't any duplicates. And so I don't know, like, I was like, I just hope that she's tough enough for this case.
And Chris brings up a great point. There was a day and a half where she kept forgetting the jury.
Yes,
she kept forgetting to bring the jury.
She literally was like, you know what? We have 8 minutes. Do we have enough time to get all of the jurors outside of this courthouse and take a stroll?
Get some fresh air.
And so then she comes back and she starts going. She fucking forgot the jury who's still on a stroll outside. She started the court day back up.
She has forgotten him a couple times.
Weeping and shit. I'm like, what are you doing?
Every time, if you'll notice, she'll be like, it'll be, let's just use this as an example. It'll be like 7 o'clock. She'll be like, all right, let's take a 10-minute break. And then they excuse the jury. And after she excuses the jury, she's like, all right, I'll see you guys back in here at 7:20. Like, what happened to 10 minutes?
What happened to 10 minutes? She keeps extending. She did the same thing. I think it was on Friday. She's like, well, all right, we'll come back, at 10:30. And she's like, you know what? Scratch that. 10:35. Like, what do you need the extra 5 minutes for? What do you need those extra 5 minutes for?
She's got a treadmill in her chamber. She's trying to hit all her steps, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know what she's doing, and I know I can't just constantly compare it to like other cases, but I've never seen that. I've never seen so many breaks. But I would be upset because think about it. Not only are we having all these breaks, but we at least get to see when they are, the before and after the breaks. Hey, do you guys have anything to argue? And a lot of times they're arguing a lot. The jury's not there for that. So the jury is spending a lot of time outside of that courtroom. I would be annoyed.
I would be as well. And plus, I think what we think of as breaks is like when they're doing major sidebars or arguments, or she's going to chambers to review something. Well, those are actually also added breaks. So she'll go do something in chambers, like reviewing the binder. They come back and like within 10 or 15 minutes, okay, it's time for a comfort break. Like they just had one. No, it wasn't technically labeled a comfort break, but they were in the jury room for 15 minutes. So let's consider it that and move on.
And you know what I thought, and I've been saying this since day one. I'm like, damn, this judge takes a lot of breaks. But I thought maybe, like I was overthinking it. But until I started seeing everybody saying, what's up with the breaks? Like, so I know This is getting excessive, and it's getting, I don't know. Like I said, I would be with court. It's supposed to be same time every day, like it's supposed to be respecting of everyone's time. We have no idea what time court starts the next day until the day previous ends. We have today I ran so late. I had my Patreon live right before this, and it's the first day that it went to 6:30. Usually we're ending 2 hours early. We're starting an hour late, ending 2 hours early. I don't know what the fuck we're doing. And then today it went all the way to the number. I was like, oh shit. Like it's a mess.
It was a very long day today. I found it interesting. I'm gonna try to edit that video though, because I just could not hear it, and I want to hear it better.
So that's also what I wanted to talk about. So not only are we dealing with a lot of breaks from day one, I've been struggling with the audio. Now I am already someone who I can hear, but I can't distinct what you're saying, if that makes sense. Like I have to, that's probably why I talk so loud. Like I have to have you pretty loud for me to understand what you're saying. So I'm not even just talking about the interviews. Let's put that to the side for a second. Even at times, the prosecution, I can't hear what you're saying. I can't hear the questions you're asking the witness. And I remember the day, I think it may have been Friday, you were switching back and forth with what is it?
Long crime and court TV.
Yes, I mixed the both. I mixed the two.
You put them together. Long court.
Long court. Well,
new channel coming soon.
To see who has the better audio, because the audio is that bad. But we have these interviews, and these interviews are very, very important interviews. This is Leilani essentially being interviewed from day one, and you're listening to her story change. You're listening to her lies unravel, except we're not listening to anything. Because when I say I cannot make out anything in these interviews, I can't make out anything. And today may have been the worst one by far. And I hope the jury can hear it. And the reason I'm concerned about that is because at the end of the interview today, under direct, Superman said, and now I'm just going to recap and ask you some questions just to make sure, I know it said it in the in the video, but I just want to make sure the jury heard it. And so I was like, oh shit, are they not hearing a good quality audio on top of us?
I did not hear at least 2 or 3 of the things that he discussed after the video. I didn't hear them in the video. Like that's how bad the audio was. I could not hear that at all. So I am very concerned. Hopefully they have a transcript or something, but typically they don't with that stuff.
Well, we could record it and we could try to boost it. But I don't know if like Grizzly boosts it. Doesn't Grizzly boost it? So I'm like, should I even do that much work if it's about to happen?
Well,
Someone else is gonna do it.
I did download a booster and I've been boosting it in real time, but it's still so hard. There's so much because we're hearing it. You have to remember, we're hearing it through the court audio that's listening to it. So I'm just hopeful that what they're actually hearing might be slightly better.
Well, here, let me give you an example, because Wolfie took a couple of seconds and boosted it, and it's so much clearer. So here, let me just even play a portion, this clip, because I was like, oh crap, this sounds really good. But it'll take, that's a couple of seconds. So it'll take a while to sit there and screen record, over an hour and then boost over an hour.
I've already screen recorded the hour-long
Oh, you did?
interview. I did. I went back because I was like, this is obnoxious. So I just went back to the beginning and started screen recording it. I just got to load it into my editor, and I'm going to try to remove some of the background noise and boost it a little bit. But yeah, I've already done the hard part of the screen recording it.
Okay, because here, let me. All right, I have this one. Hold on. This one. 23 seconds. Okay. Because even this, I'm like, oh wow, this is so much clearer. And this is what we need. And it's so important. It's so important to get to listen to it, because it's like, imagine we went through all of Tisha's and you couldn't hear her gruesing interview, or you couldn't hear the calls with Al. What? that is what nails her. This, and so kind of circling back around to what we said before is, oh, well, you know, I haven't heard anything more than circumstantial, very damning circumstantial, but nothing like as a hard hitting oof. That may be within here, and we aren't hearing it.
Mhm. And I jumped around because I wasn't streaming this today. I jumped around through I jumped through to Grizzlies, to, Michelle After Darks, to Court TV, to Law and Crime. They all sounded just the same.
They all sound-
This specific interview was just bad everywhere.
It was really bad. Okay, so look.
Because someone was, that's huge for us. Yeah, so I want to sell some of them. Yeah, so I was out trying name. You think that's the name?
So a little bit better, even though, you know, it was only a couple of seconds, but I was
Yeah,
able to
a
actually
little bit.
hear somewhat voices versus I couldn't hear any of it.
It just sounded like wah, wah, wah. Yeah. And the subtitles that come on on
Yeah,
like Court TV aren't always the best because they're not picking it up either.
they're
So
not picking it
it's
up
rough.
either. It's,
Yeah.
oh man. And then so this morning, for the first witness, we had the cast guy who, I think you said it before, Deeds. Basically, he went through Danny, Leilani's, and Paul's phone, and Leilani, she was the only one who was up and out and about on the night of Quinn's murder.
Mhm.
And defense is kind of, they're really hammering in Danny. They are
Danny.
using Danny to create reasonable doubt, which again, separating my emotions,
Mhm.
it's a good route to go. And they have the opening because Danny is not remembering. He has a little bit of inconsistency, but again, or earlier on, I could at least make sense of it. Earlier on, he wouldn't have known what the hell happened. So
No.
you're not realizing how significant your statements really are at this time. But two, they were doing illegal activity. They were doing drugs. You have a you know, a couple of month old child at home. Yes, you are doing drugs in the presence of these children. Obviously, you wouldn't want to just be so forthcoming about that, especially at that point when you don't know that there was a murder. And so it seemed like only after a couple of days had elapsed very quickly, actually, not even like one day in, you know, like Danny starts to realize what the hell's going on. And that's when he opens up and is forthcoming. But because of that inconsistency, because initially he apparently said he did remember Leilani coming home and now he doesn't, and Danny on the stand says I don't remember, and the truth is that he was a heavy drinker, the using of drugs.
Yeah.
Not judging him for it, that's just what it is. And of course, and now it's years later, of course your mind's going to be a little bit fuzzy.
Oh, he definitely sounds like he is missing portions of
Yes,
life and memory.
which it tugs on my
Absolutely.
heartstrings a bit.
See, I don't have a ton of empathy for Danny. I While I don't think that it's fair to blame him for anything, he's not the one on trial. He was never named as a suspect. And as we heard today, Paul and Danny's stories of what they were doing that day remained consistent, and Leilani is the one who lied over and over and over again. I think he failed Quentin as well. I think everybody
Everybody
failed
did.
Quentin. Like, I mean, they've admitted to the two supposed main caretakers, Danny and Leilani, were both what they do. They get off work, they would have lines that they're sharing between one another. Danny self-admitting, that he is drinking heavily after work on the daily, and then they're going home and taking care of 3 babies. And today we heard in the testimony about how she propped up Sky's bottle at 3 a.m., and I'm just like, it just
Trope.
made me so angry, like, yes, as moms, we've all been in the position where we might have had to do that once or twice throughout their, infancy because something's going on. But to me, the way she described it, it just felt like that's the nightly routine. Get up at 3, she's in the swing sleeping and you
She's
prop
in
her
the
bottle
swing.
up. And
Yep.
it's just so frustrating. I don't know how they were able to function in maintaining the lives of these three small children on top of the activity that they were doing.
But see,
It
then
was a lot.
my anger more lies with Billy Joe with that, because
Yes,
you
yes.
knew this is your home and you stepped up and you said, I'll protect these kids. I'll
Yeah.
take these kids. And then you
And you didn't.
didn't.
And I
So
don't begrudge
everybody
her.
holds that, culpability.
I don't begrudge her having to go to work.
No,
But
but then you can take on the
your
kids.
daughter. I go back to that very first interview, the phone interview between when Billy Joe and her husband were on the phone
Yeah.
interview, and they were like, "We don't know because Leilani lies." And it's like, if you know this, you know that these two grown-ass adults are here doing drugs and drinking and all this stuff while trying to take care of these babies. Why would you leave them alone? Like, why not get a 24-hour babysitter? I don't know. I just feel like if you know this is happening, why take that risk? Why would anybody take that risk if you know that it is such a tumultuous environment, you know?
Well,
And
and
it was
CPS
bad.
didn't. It was a mutual. It basically, they
Yes.
bypassed Leilani getting her kids taken away by
Mhm.
engaging in a mutual kinship agreement, which
Yes.
is, it's an agreement with Leilani agrees, Billy Joe agrees, and they agree that the kids will be taken care of by Billy Joe. But it, like Billy Joe's own admission, it was only black and white. They weren't
Mhm.
actually
It was
um
just on paper.
right. It was it. So, and I can understand as a mom seeing your young child, who's a mom now, fucking up and wanting to give her room without having long-term repercussions, without never having a chance at getting your children back, to give her the opportunity. But there is a way to do that. She could have done that without just, here you go. We're bypassing. There's a reason that Leilani was about to have her kids taken away. And
Yep.
you should have cared more about the babies. They are minors. They are vulnerable. They cannot defend themselves. They cannot fend for themselves. And they should have taken priority in their well-being over your adult daughter.
If I even heard my daughter was propping my grandson's bottle up to feed him at night, which I mean he's breastfed, but still, if I heard that, I'd have a talk with her like, what are you doing? Like, you're missing out on some bonding opportunities. N-
Mhm.
Minus the fact that it's just not safe. They could choke. There's so many things that could happen. Just having that conversation, and it felt like nobody cared enough to have the tough conversations. It felt like they were all in their own selfish little worlds, and we heard that today, like, the special agent in the interview in the beginning where we could hear a little better, he was trying to butter her up, and he's like, "I'm sorry, I kinda lost it last time, and I found out from your mom, it seems like you don't have any positive male role models in your life, and so you took that extra hard," and we hear that her stepdad hugged her for the first time that day, and it just like, these people, how are all of these people involved in raising these three small children, but they all just seem to be in their own little worlds,
Right.
selfishly taking care of themselves, focused on
Well,
themselves.
and it wasn't until a really trial that I saw the layout of the room, and I didn't
Mhm.
really realize they were all, like, I thought were Leilani, Danny, and Sky moved in, but Zane and Quentin were already established there and had their own area being raised by Billy Joe. I was wrong.
Yeah.
Leilani, Danny, Sky, Zane, and Quentin were all in this room, which is a big room. There's more than enough room. It just wasn't kept up with nicely,
I mean, the whole house had so much
Yes,
stuff in it.
yes. And so when I saw this, I'm like, wait a second. Because now I'm going to circle back around real quickly before we go to Allie's to Billy Joe filed eviction paperwork.
Yep.
Within those eviction paperwork, she did, and I thought it was maybe a mistake. I don't know what I thought, but she included Zane and Quentin in it. Okay.
Yep.
Leilani, Danny, and her kids need
Yep.
to get out. Was she now I question, if this didn't happen, Billy Joe, were you keeping Quentin and Zane, or did you actually expect her to take the kids?
them.
Because how not following this kinship agreement was actually really happening? Did you indeed mean all of them have to get out?
I think so. And that's just my opinion. That's not MJ's, that's mine. But I do think that that's what that was intending. And I've always wondered if those events the week prior helped build up to the moment of October 5th, and it very well could have. But how would that even be possible if you have this kinship agreement that you're going to evict your grandsons that you have, I don't know, guardianship, custody, whatever it is of them? How?
I don't know.
And
That's why I have so many questions, and this may be how we started it with, well, I heard Billy Joe say she's not testifying. Why wouldn't she be put up on that stand?
and I think she looks bad for both
I
sides.
think she does. I think she does. So tomorrow, I think we're starting. First of all, Bendy is streaming Boone. I started with Bendy this morning, and Boone is taking the stand tomorrow, which I didn't expect it to happen that fast. I know I didn't expect it to happen that fast. It was very heavy. Very early on this morning, we had the medical examiner get up on the stand and testify to the injuries that George had. I always pronounce his name both ways. I hear people pronouncing his name both ways, so I'm not even sure which is the correct way to pronounce it. Yes, already Harlech. So she's taking the stand tomorrow. Then we have
Wait, didn't it just start like Friday?
Yes.
Okay.
That's
Okay,
what
I thought so. I don't follow Boone closely. I just never got interested in the case. Sorry, don't come for me.
No,
But I mean, I know the gist and the basics of it and all that and how she's been here, there, everywhere crazy. Why is she taking the stand so early?
Well, she has to take the stand because the way Bendy explained it is that she cannot bring in the battered woman defense at all until she takes the stand. So I don't know if that's the reason that, because it's still prosecution's case,
okay.
Right. So I'm not sure what I have to ask Bendy, because I was more into Leilani's trial, and then catching up with Delphi today. The jurors were shown the photos of Abby and Libby, and it was very, very emotional. I read how the jurors literally had their face in their hands. There were visual breathing differences in jurors. Like one jury you could see taking like very deep, heavy breaths. Another jury, their head were in their hands. It was, whew, so we have 3 major trials going on at the same time.
I'm
but
so
are you
upset about Delphi. So upset about Delphi. Yes, I will be streaming tomorrow. I'll stream it. We can't miss Big Red's testimony.
We can't miss Big Red. I think they're going to be the first witnesses called.
I hope so. It'll be I think it's going to be a long day. I think it's going to be a long day. I'm guessing they'll probably go with Tim first and get him just being the dealer, get his testimony out of the way, and then possibly on to Big Red. I have one more comment, and then I'll hop down so you can say your goodbyes. But with the Delphi, can I just say, what the hell is up with the sketches coming out of the courtroom? It looks like a 5-year-old colored them.
Well, and with the sketches, so 2 look similar too, but the other 2, and I had never seen this one before. I was like, what is this? Okay, like, how are we so off? But then a motion was filed, and even the news reports are getting it wrong, saying that they don't want the video that was recorded, the bridge guy,
the down the hill video.
Right. That's not true. The motion actually says that they want it to be played as is, and they do not want prosecution to essentially tell the jury what to hear, what they think is said. They want it to be played as is, with no additional, like, here, this is what you're hearing. Don't have it like, hold on, here it is. So it's a defendant's motion in limine. I'm not sure what that is.
Limine.
Oh, thank you. limine regarding videos from the victim's phone. So it says the defense believes that the state will seek to introduce video and audio enhancements of the video recovered from LG's cell phone. Said video was taken on February 13th, 2017. The video and audio enhancements contains words and sounds. One of the audio enhancement files received by the defense contains a phrase seemingly uttered by one of the victims, which phrase is repeated on a loop. The words allegedly spoken by the victims on the enhanced video are very difficult to understand. So the defense requests that the courts prohibit the state from eliciting testimony concerning what words are spoken by the girls on the enhanced audio recordings. And the defense request, go ahead.
I just think that the reason they're doing that is because we have heard, that there's a portion where it sounds like one of the girls say gun. I think that that means that it's open for interpretation, that maybe it doesn't actually sound like that. But these aren't even the sketches I was talking about, Melissa J. These are crazy too. I'm talking about, since there are no, I have to hop off here. There's no audio, there's no visuals, but there is a sketch artist in the courthouse. And the sketches that the sketch artist is doing looks like a cross between a kindergartner's coloring contest photo and a caricature. Like, they
I
are
can see those. I thought you meant this because I was like, what is number 4? Like, I didn't know where that came from.
Yeah.
But I agree. I do
4
agree
is crazy out here, yeah.
I do agree with this defense motion because it also says, not eliciting any testimony concerning what sounds are contained. I don't know if you've ever done, I forgot what it's called, but you could even look up videos on YouTube where it will play a sound and it'll be like, okay, what did you hear? And you're like, shit, I don't know what it even said. And then it'll be like, now listen for my tits are huge. And then when they play the audio again, you hear it clear as day, my tits are huge. And it's like, oh shit. And then it's like, well, no, now listen for zebras are red. And then you hear, you know what I mean? So I wholeheartedly agree not to tell us. Right.
What is it? Yanni, Laurel, whatever it was. Remember?
Yes. The Yanni and Laurel. Yes, exactly. You can't tell. I agree that you should not be able to tell the jury what they should hear or have a witness say what they hear. They need to determine that on their own.
I agree. Thank you for having me up. I'll hop down so you can say your goodbyes.
Thank you so much, Deets. Deets has been streaming this trial. Shout out to Deets. And she will be live streaming it tomorrow morning. Here is our link. So we will be all over there. I'm so excited to hear Tim and Craig's testimony. And we think that they're coming up first.
Crazy. All right. Bye, love.
Thank you, Deets. And so Allie and Bendy are going live on Allie's channel right now to stream the newest set of Letitia calls. So I will drop her link and I will also drop Bendy's link because Bendy has been streaming Sarah Boone's trial. And so I know she will be live tomorrow also streaming that. And Boone is taking the stand. So we have a lot going on. Tomorrow, I think Allie will be doing her recap on Leilani. Tomorrow I'll be doing Wade. I'm doing alternating days, so I'll probably do another Leilani recap. I do 2 days at a time, so I'm doing another Leilani recap on Wednesday. So thank you all so much for being here. I absolutely love Members Only Mondays. Thank you all so much for the support. It means more than you know. Thank you for anybody who isn't a member. We appreciate you. Gray, green, blue, it doesn't matter. Thank you if you're just watching. And I will see you guys over at Bendy's. I'm sorry, Allie's. Bendy and Allie over at Allie's. I'm sorry. I will see you guys over. I had to unmute. I will see you guys over at Allie's right now. Okay, bye.